Melvin, sit. Sit. This is Melvin and Bruce, but really mostly Melvin's roadmap to success. So as you heard there, I said the command word twice. I'd call this during the command stage and the reward stage. So I told him what to do, and he has a 3-second window to comply. If he sits in that 3-second window, then I rewarded him by giving him the bully bite, and I said the word sit a second time to tell him what he did to get the bully bite. That is the most important time to say it, and that's the time nobody ever says it. What do? Sit. Doug sits. What do we do? Good boy. Well, I hear good boy when I poop, when I sleep, when I come, when I go. It means everything. It doesn't mean any one specific thing. Putting it in context means one specific thing. He has a little bit of a potty issue, I think. And so let's go over potty training real quick. So when I potty train a dog, what I do is I use that passive training, really it's operant conditioning. And so I go out on a walk and I wait for the dog to potty on his own. As soon as the dog starts to pee or poop, I say a command word. And I would recommend you come up with a new command word because I think the guardians right here, if I remember correctly, say, let's go and make a potty. Dogs hear the first word we say. So you might want to say, if there's a political figure you don't like, you might want to say the figure. Probably don't, because it's dividing the country. But if there's, maybe you call it, deposit or splat. I say business, whatever word you want to use. So as soon as the dog starts to pee or poop, same word for both actions. Say the word business in a normal tone of voice. A lot of times we say, I'm not going to say it because it'll cause them, but we say it really excitedly. They stop peeing, they come in, and then they evacuate in here. So what we do is as soon as they start to pee or poop, you have a treat with you, and you say business in a normal tone of voice. When the dog gets done, you crouch down. I'm not going to move because it'll cause him to bark, but when you're on a walk, if you crouch down, he's going to come to you, then you put the treat in his mouth and you say the word business, again, to let him know why he's getting the treat. Now, you might want to start out with what we call a jackpot. So maybe have the treat and tear each treat into thirds, and maybe every time when he does it, you say business, business, business. He's like, what did I just do? I just got 3 treats that are really tasty. What did I do? I got to remember to do that again. And after a while, the dog's like, I dare not pee in the house because this urine is valuable stuff. If I do it out there, I get rewarded. If I do it in here, nothing happens. So now the dog has a motivation. He'll go sit at the door, asking to go out, hopefully based on one of the rules we're going to talk about. Okay, so the video above will cover the barking. But remember, when he's barking or naughty, either dog, it probably means they need to exercise. And once you make that connection, it will be a game changer for your life. But we look at it as like, I'm trying to write and you're barking, you're interrupting me. He's not doing it intentionally. He's just saying, I have too much energy right now. Would you like to exercise me, or would you like me to bark a lot? And yelling at a dog, remember, good attention and bad attention is pretty much the same thing. So if you yell at a dog who's barking, the dogs think, cool, now we're both barking. And it's not going to get the point across. The video above, those tricks and tips will help, but exercise is a huge contributing factor. So remember, one of the things I talked about is the doggy stairmaster. So you have one person at the top of the stairs, one at the bottom, and a retractable leash, and just have Melvin out there. So you're at the top of the stairs with Melvin, and the person at the bottom of the stairs says, Melvin, come. When he comes to you, you give him the treat, and you say Cancun, which means to go down the steps, or whatever this word is you want to use to go down south, to go down the stairs. Remember, the treat goes in the mouth first. They share the command word after for every time you treat a reward. If you're going to reward with a pet, sit. When the dog sits, sit. Okay, so when he runs to the bottom of the stairs, give him the treat, say sit, and then let him. And then the person at the top of the stairs calls him up when he comes to the top of the treat and call it the veil, aspen, something like that means go to the top. Keep on doing this, empty stomach the first time until Melvin's like, you're crazy. I've been down there 78 times. I'm not doing down there anymore. Now we know what the maximum number is. We want to exercise about 50 to 75% of that maximum number multiple times a day. Preferably every 2 to 4 hours. And if you're having guests come over, exercising him before. The guardian who's filming right now, when the guardian comes home from work, he starts barking at her. Well, text when you're on your way home. Hey, I'm leaving now. I'll be there in 25 minutes. So the person that's home sets the timer, and 10 minutes, 15 minutes before you're supposed to walk through the door, he goes to the stairs, and they throw the treat up and down the stairs. Then the dog needs at least 10 minutes to recover before the person comes in. And before the person comes in, you might give them the bully bite or something else to give them something to placate him. That's probably not going to stop him from barking, but exercising him will really help with that quite a bit. Now, if a dog is barking, they're running around. I'm force-free, but if a dog is moving, sometimes they get themselves more aroused by moving around. So if you notice he's barking and running all over the place, you might put him on a leash and step on the leash. Maybe you'll give him about this much room, so he doesn't have as much room to, maybe for these dogs, maybe about 2 or 3 feet of room. So that can sometimes help the dog not bark. Now we're pulling it or punishing him. We're just preventing him from moving too around to get too aroused or overly aroused. Okay, so exercise. You can also exercise your dog by feeding them. Get a snuffle mat. Get 2 snuffle mats. You can make them yourself. It's not worth it just to order them online. Get 2 of those. And so you can feed them out of one of their meal out of snuffle mats. And the snuffle mats would be one where I'd probably feed them together or at the same time. Maybe one in the kitchen, one out here, because the snuffle mat's going to take quite a while. Now we can also feed them out of that Omega Paw treat ball. You can also use other puzzles and games. The Omega Paw I found is one of the best. It's one of the ones I recommend a lot because it works really well. Now when my dog licks up at the Omega Paw, I say soccer every time they lick up the treat, so that because it looks like a little soccer player. Remember, use fun command words. Dogs can read facial expressions. So every new command I'd like you to come up with, I'd like you to have something that causes the guardians in the house to chuckle or smile. And one of the guardians here is very creative, and so should be able to come up with some great stuff like that. Now, when you are feeding them, remember they eat in the order of the rank. So whoever the human is should eat something first. Then I always have Bruce gets to come in the kitchen. If we're feeding out of a bowl, Bruce gets to eat and use that passive training. I have 4 dogs. I say grub, chow, feast, and lasagna. Each dog has its own word to eat. So come up with your 2 different types of food. So when he eats, maybe his word is meatball. So the first time he takes a bite of food, he hears the word meatball. Well, Melvin's out here outside the kitchen. When he hears meatball, there's no food in his mouth. So it doesn't mean anything. When he hears meatball, there's food in his mouth. The context is meatball means I eat. And then when he gets done eating, he has to leave the area. If he leaves any food in his bowl, you pick it up and dump it. Empty bowl, nothing to protect. And then when he's done, we invite Melvin in. When Melvin's in the kitchen, he's not allowed to be in the kitchen. So the humans are going to act like the authority figures by controlling access, and that way neither dog has to go worry about another dog coming near them and trying to take their food. It's not a problem now, but it could develop a problem down the line, and this is a wonderful way for the humans to act like leaders from the dog's perspective, and eating is the most important activity. And again, any leftover food, dump it. Eventually, I'd like you to feed them out of that snuffle mat and the Omega Paw treat ball. It'll take a little bit longer feeding, but now that's a whole exercise thing that you do from something you're going to feed them anyways. I didn't do it here. Some dogs you can have them chase a laser. I think in these dogs it's probably going to be not a healthy thing for them to do. I usually do that unless the dog gets panty or drooly or really out of sorts. He's already out of sorts, so that's why I don't think it's going to be the healthiest thing for him. But also Google scent games. Scent games is a great way. Anything they're using their nose is draining. And remember, on a walk, they burn more energy from sniffing than from running around. And increasing distance. If he's barking anything, and move him into the street, move him around a car. And I didn't have a chance to go through it here, but if you want, there's a focus exercise that you can teach the dog to do. And if you go to doggonproblems.com, click on where it says dog training tips on the right side of the page, or at the bottom of the page, there's a search box. Type in focus, and you can teach your dog how to focus. So you move your dog around a car, then you practice the focus game like I showed in the video. Now you've redirected the dog's attention away from whatever they're barking at, as long as they can't see it or hear it, and you increase the distance. But increasing the distance is the best thing to do for a reactive dog. You can also, we talked about keeping the dog out of the kitchen. Type invisible or invisible boundary, or you can type in kitchen. I have videos where I show people how to keep their dog out of the kitchen. That would be one of the rules, which we're going to talk about now. So for dogs, if we don't have a lot of rules for them, they perceive themselves as being the same as us. And a lack of rules means that we are peers, and if we are peers, then listening to is now optional. That's not the life we want to live with our dog. It's stressful for them if they think they're peers with us, because then they think they need to protect us. So before we go to the rules, remember to get that white paper, do it all the way across, and I would do it probably about maybe a third of the way up. And that way the dog shouldn't be able to see outside, and they don't get that validation that my barking made that person walk away, even though the person was walking away. In their mind, they think they made it happen. So basically what you want to do is, for the rules, I would recommend you get the X mats for the couch. And you're probably going to have to get about 4 of them from the look of the couch that I'm seeing. And if they get on the top there, tinfoil also works, but it doesn't look that great. But maybe before you leave, maybe you get a piece of tinfoil, put it on the couch the rest of the time, and put like a safety pin up at the top, because I could see them jumping up and instead of laying on the couch, laying on the top, and then they have practice of being up there. So the tinfoil will keep them off there. So basically, the rules should be in place for at least 90 days, or as long as the problem's going on. As long as he's doing the barking, I would say no furniture for him, because that's a status thing. Now, the guardians ask about using a thunder shirt. I would recommend a thunder shirt, but I would recommend not picking him up if possible. If you have to, it's an emergency. There's a crying kid upstairs. You got to do what you got to do occasionally. But remember, elevating is a reward for the dog. And good attention, bad attention. So chastising them when they're barking is going to reinforce it. And if you use a bark collar, it usually produces much worse problems. It'll stop the barking, then he starts getting chewing, or marking, or the anxiety is manifest one way or the other. So what we're trying to do, my approach is a holistic approach to demote him and make him feel confident so he doesn't have that anxiety, doesn't feel the need to bark the way he does now, but does bark if there's a peeping Tom or a legitimate reason to bark. Okay, so no furniture for 90 days or as long as a problem, and then eventually with an invitation only, and not for breaking a rule, but for good behavior, just because you feel like it. If you want to reward them, pet their bellies or whatever it is, we're not going to worry about him. He's used to being on the couch. I would probably wait until you have the X-Mats before you start enforcing that one. Remember how I showed you how to teach the dog to go to the dog bed? Practice that with each dog bed, and each dog bed should have its own unique name or designation. So you could say Virginia or, Carolina. It's blue. I guess that'd be a good one. All right. So some other rules. You have to sit at the door. Go to the door. Sit. Tell them to sit one time. And I would do this in concert with the video that we went over above. And so they already have a leash on, so you can open the door, and if they run out, you try to run out, you can step on the leash and keep them safe. So go to the door, say sit once. Remember, the more you say it, the less you mean it. Repeating a word will train the dog to not listen to you and also demonstrates that you are not a leader because you don't follow through. They can't go outside, you can, because they can't open the door. So now you have leverage. Sit. 1, 2, 3. You don't sit by the time I hit 3. I walk away. Make sure you sit down. If you stand there at the door, they know you're waiting for them. Sitting down is I'm going to be here for a while. Wait 1 minute, set a timer, then go back to the door and command them again. Sit. If they don't sit this time within 3 seconds, walk away and sit down for 2 minutes. Next time you sit down for 4 minutes, 8 minutes. Keep double length of time until eventually when you say sit, butt hits the ground, and then the door opens, then they get to go outside. So sitting causes the door to open. Most people train their dog to scratch at the door because we don't want our door damaged. That's when we go open the door. Well, then they're going to scratch at the door and do exactly what we don't want. Other rules, when the guardians are eating here, the dog should not be allowed on this carpet. Dog bed there is fine. They can walk. There's a little runner. They're little dogs. They can get there. But as soon as they get on the carpet, you're going to stand up and march towards them using that third consequence that I went over. If you forget what those are, message me and I can share a private video. I don't share the consequences because people use them out of context, but I'll share them with you guys because there's so much barking you might not have gotten it, and the other guardian had to head out for an appointment. So message me if you can't remember those. I can share that with you privately. But create scenarios for this. What I like to do is, I like jokingly say there's no entrapment glass for dogs. Another rule is they're not allowed to go in the kitchen when we're preparing food. So the way I did that is I demonstrated that. But what you could do is when we're cooking, we're thinking about cooking our ingredients and our mind is off the dog. Now remember, anything your dog is doing when you pet it or give it attention is what you're rewarding. But anything that your dog does that you don't specifically disagree with has your seal of approval. So if it crossed the threshold and your back is them because you're stirring something and you don't see it, and then you turn around and chase the dog away 5 seconds later, the dog doesn't know why it's being asked to leave. So what I recommend people do is go in the kitchen. As soon as you cross the threshold, turn. So you're facing that and take 1 step backwards, pause, 1 step back, and walk back to your fridge. Grab some bacon, if you can religiously reasons have bacon. Cook a single piece of bacon, and you're facing the doorway the whole time. If the dog comes forward, you start racing towards the doorway. And as soon as the dog vacates, you stop. You don't have to always go to the edge, but if the dog stays there, you go all the way and you crash into the dog if he's still there. The dog needs to learn, I'm not allowed to go in there. And as soon as I go in there, that causes the human to come and rush at me. Once the bacon's microwaved, you put it on your little work island right there, and then pull out your bread, your ingredients, put the stove on. All the time, your hips are pointing towards the dog, and you're watching the dog out of your peripheral, but don't watch the dog like this. Kind of doing it. As soon as the dog starts coming in, you stop what you're doing and rush the door. So the dog's like, man, blue shirt man came, and suddenly they see everything. Well, we're setting up a practice scenario where we can help them practice. When they sit or lie down outside the door, then you put the bacon away and you start your actual cooking. It sure looks like you were cooking when you were practicing. You're in the place that you cook. It smells like you're cooking. But as soon as I try to cross the threshold, they rush at me. And after a while, the dog learns, I have to stay behind this line. Helping him develop self-control will help with the barking, his over threshold, his manners on the walk, a lot of things. Dogs are instinctive creatures. They don't naturally have self-control. We have to help them practice it. And that's a great way to demonstrate that. Okay, so let's see, what else do we over? We went over petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose. He jumps up on me, or paws at me, or barks at me for attention. He's telling me what to do. Leaders tell, followers ask. So if he tells me what to do and I pet him, then I'm rewarding him and saying, yes, you're the boss of me. Remember we were chewing? At this point, he's tired. We've been here for 3 hours. This is why we keep visits short and all that fun stuff, but here, this is what we got to do. Okay, so basically... Did you finish it? I'm going to give you one more just so we can finish this up. But this is not ideal because this is rewarding for the barking. Sit. Sit. That's a big one. Okay. All right. So petting with a purpose. If the dog tells me what to do and I do it, then that validates, yes, you're in charge of me. Yes, you're being good. So I'll give you one too. These are little ones, so these are okay because they haven't been the big full ones. So there's a little more than more than you would normally do, but there we go. Yes. Quiet a little bit. Okay, so if he tells me what to do and I do it, then that validates that he's in charge of me. So what I want you to do instead, if they nudge at you, bark at you, paw at you, tell them, give them a counter order, ask them to sit or lay down. Don't practice shake with either dog anymore because it confuses them like we talked about off camera. If the dog sits within 3 seconds, pet under the chin. Try to avoid petting up here. You pet anywhere you want except for up here. But all things being equal, try to pet under the chin to facilitate their nose up, especially here. It boosts their self-esteem and confidence. If they don't sit within 3 seconds, remember, playing hard to get works great for dating. It works great for dogs. If you don't do what I ask you to do, the smallest thing you do and sit, I can't be bothered to pet you. But as soon as you sit, boy, I'm going to pet you for that. Now, if they're already sitting here, ask them to sit here or lay down. For him, the passive training will probably help you train him for a down. After a while, the dog will learn. I can't tell them what to do. I have to ask, and better than ask, I have to pay for the privilege of their attention. And the dog will start sitting in front of you to prepay for attention. Now, Bruce already kind of does this, and so I'm hoping that combined with this exercise, that's going to really help accelerate Melvin's doing the same thing. Now, if they do that, make sure you do recognize and pet them. Otherwise, they will go back to barking and doing the other things. And remember to use the watchword of paycheck. Paycheck means I suspect you may have forgotten to pet with a purpose. So somebody comes to the room and sees I'm petting Melvin. He's standing. They say paycheck. I stop petting even if I did it right. I tell Melvin to sit. When he sits, I pet him on the chin, say sit. They say, actually, you missed it. You came in the room late, but I did ask him to do it. And he stood up when you walked in. Even if you did it right. And even if you want to pet the dog and they're not demanding attention, they still have to sit to earn that affection. If you get in a habit of petting with a purpose, every time you pet your dog, it increases dog's respect for you as an authority figure, it boosts the dog's confidence, it helps them practice a desirable command like a sit or down. It becomes a gift, and it'll take you about 3 months to get in the habit of doing it. But once you do, every time you do it, it becomes like that mini dog training session. Now, passive training is basically waiting for the dog to organically offer you the behavior, then marking it and rewarding it. Kind of what we were doing with the bark in the video above. When he barked, we clicked, and then we give him the treat. Now, we don't have to click for passive training. Passive training, every time that Melvin comes to me, I should pet him and say, come. Not when I enticed him to, when he did it on his own volition. Every time this is what I talked about before laying down, every time he lays down, say crash or chill or whatever the word is you want to mean. Again, come up with a funny one. So every time I sit, they pet me and I hear the word sit. Every time they bring me a toy, we named all these toys. This is condo, and all the rest of these things. And so now the dog, if you want to play with the dog, you can say, Melvin, give me the condo. And he brings you, the little ball. And you're like, no, I want the condo. So you can be more specific in your communication and your expression of what you want your dog to do. Petting with a purpose and passive training are both two ways to clearly communicate to the dog the things that you want that get your attention. Most people ignore the things that we want. And remember, good attention is bad attention. The dog comes to you and you ignore it, sits in front of you, lays in front of you, ignore it for all these things. But it barks and you correct it, or it starts chewing something you corrected, it's going to do the things you don't want because that's what gets your attention. The more you pay attention to what your dog does and reward the things you want, the more they will offer that behavior. Now remember, when they're mischievous or bad, it often means that they need exercise. So make sure you get them that exercise, again, every couple of hours, and that will really pay big dividends. Now, we also went over the escalating consequences. Again, for those, if you forget what those are, let me know and I can go over those with you. Now, it's very normal to need go through to need follow-ups, and I have all these videos just like the one above that I can share with you. Like I said, go to the website, look for the one for invisible line, focus exercise, and I do have calm. You can also search for calm leash, and it basically shows you the activity that I talked about in the video above. Lastly, confident dogs brush things off. Insecure dogs are really barky and spazzy, and he shows a lot of signs of insecurity, and he's a rescue dog. It's very normal. So the best way to inoculate them or to help them is to build up their self-esteem and confidence. There seems to be a tipping point when a dog reaches about 10 unique commands. Also, when you're doing the commands, make sure that when they sit, you do that hand motion for sit. I think you do this, but like this. Like this? Yeah. So the dog sits, you say sit, the dog sits, sit while you're petting it or while you're giving the treat. You're going to miss out on all your bully bites. Well, this brings the end of it anyways. So let's pair the dogs real quick. So this is Melvin. And the other one, that's all right, you can't be able to see him. And the other dog is Bruce. And this is their roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it. Sit,